Hello, and welcome to our week on building alliances. Chapter 6 is going to be really interesting for you. It starts off with a wonderful quote by Rita Pearson, who unfortunately is no longer with us, but she was a veteran teacher of probably 40 years, probably more. And she's just phenomenal. And she's got a wonderful TED Talk that I show in my Ed 120 class. So if you've had that with me, you've seen this talk. It's all about being champions for our students, and also making those connections. So we've been talking here about the importance of making connections with students and building that community. And we're going to continue those conversations. And so it's such a great way to open up the chapter with her quote. And if you haven't seen it, I put a link to the TED Talk. It's about 7 minutes and it's fabulous. If you haven't seen it, you must go and watch it. So anyway, that's there for you. There are some other things that I really want you to focus specifically on when you're doing the reading this week. Some important terminology: learned helplessness. You must know what this is. Our students can develop learned helplessness for a number of reasons. Sometimes our students with IEPs that have paraprofessionals work with them are provided too much help sometimes, and then develop this really perspective that they're not capable, right? That's what learned helplessness is all about. Our students that come from poor or minority cultures will sometimes believe that they can't do as much because they haven't been exposed to as much, or just not the same types of things, right? And so we want to make sure that we avoid having our students develop this idea that they are not capable. We want all students to fulfill their potential. To that end, the next two terms are really, really important when we talk about our minority kids. The stereotype threat is when a student starts to wonder, do they think maybe I'm not that smart because I'm Black? Or maybe if they are still learning English and uh, they don't have yet confidence in their ability to communicate. So they might start to think that other people are perceiving them in negative ways. And then the third one, internalized oppression, is when they really, like it says, internalize that idea. So they start thinking other people are thinking about me as not having as much potential because I'm Black or because I don't speak English well or whatever it is. And then they start to internalize that and they start to lower their expectations for themselves. And these things are so powerful, and we need to make sure that we're working with our students, particularly our students with disabilities, our students with that are learning English as a second language, our students that are from BIPOC communities. We need to make sure that they recognize that we want them to fill their potential and we think that they have a lot of potential. So how do we motivate students to keep being curious and want to learn about the world? How do we motivate them to develop confidence and independence as learners? One of the things that you're going to read about this week, in addition to chapter 6, is student-centered learning. And so, how do you become a student-centered teacher? Well, you think about, what are my students interested in? You get to know your students, first of all, and make connections with them. And then as you get to know them and you bring your own interests and passions into play too, right? And then something that you're going to learn a lot about in the second half of this course is thematic unit planning. And that's going to really help you to become a more student-centered teacher, because you can always incorporate student-centered activities and ideas into your lessons. But it's even easier if you're doing like a whole unit plan around a theme. And I'm going to put a whole video next week on unit planning, what it is, how to use themes. But basically, it's where you use a theme like space or global warming. I know I mentioned this a little bit already in one of the previous videos. Westward expansion, whatever. You have a big kind of umbrella theme that you're using to teach different content areas, but you're also able to give your students an opportunity to look at that big theme, think, what about that do I want to learn more about? And do I want to dive deep into the research on, right? And then present and teach other people about. So next week, you're going to learn about how to do that thematic unit planning. And that will go a long way to helping put your students in the driver's seat. That's one of the things that we really want to focus hard on. And then there are a couple of other things that I really want you to focus on in this chapter 6. The one is a concept of being a warm demander. What does that mean? It has a lot to do with what I just shared with you. So I want you to focus on that. When you get to that section on warm demander, how do you become one? And I see them out in the schools all the time, and they are the best teachers. So focus really carefully on how does Hammond say a teacher becomes a warm demander? What are the characteristics of a warm demander? And then what do I need to do to become a warm demander myself? Last thing is, she ends the chapter with this idea of feedback. We want students to become drivers in their own learning. And so to just give them a grade is not effective, right? That's keeping control ourselves. And so what's better is to give students feedback on their learning so that they can take that feedback and then extend their learning to the next level. There's a great study done by a Stanford researcher years ago, and she actually found that there are 3 parts to effective feedback. Number 1, and this isn't in the book, so that's why I'm sharing this here. Number 1, point out something that they did well, right? That sets the stage, that opens them up. Number 2, point out one thing they can focus on to improve. You don't want to red ink all over their paper, right? That's going to be overwhelming. It's going to be demoralizing. So what is one thing that they can work on? And then 3, give them encouragement. And this actually is so critical. This researcher did a study where she did the first 2 points and left it at that. And then she did and then she also, with another group, did the first 2 things, pointed out something they did well, and then one thing they needed to improve on. But then she added just a final statement. You've got this, or I'm giving you this feedback because I believe in you. Excuse me. And that was a game changer. The students were so much more motivated when they got that little bit of encouragement. So it's kind of like starting with a positive and ending with a positive and giving some critical, constructive feedback in the middle. So there you have it. That's part of how to be a warm demander too. So enjoy the reading. There's a lot to do this week, but you've got this. I believe in you. And reach out if you have any questions.